Always takes him longer to go from the Senate to here.
It's a long walk. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Vermont State Senate's Committee on Institutions. Today being February 24th, 2021. I am Senator Joe Benning from Caledonia County, Chair of Senate Institutions. I see also on the screen, by the way they're set up on my screen, Senator Parent from Franklin County, Senator Mazza from Grand Isle, Senator Ingalls from Essex Orleans, and just popping in now is Senator McCormick from Windsor County. We are here today to talk about regional development corporations. And to all of you now on the screen, I know some of you have been before us before, both live in person as well as on YouTube, but I want to just back up a half step and say, we are live on YouTube and have no idea how many people are actually tuning in to see us for the first time. I will default to the possibility that there are people out there who have never been involved in a committee discussion like this whatsoever. In addition to that, we have 3 new members of our committee, although one of them used to be on the committee a long time ago, and one of those 3 is a brand new legislator. So what I try to do in running this show is say, when you are about to speak, if you would give us a good little biography on who you are and how you fit into the discussion for this afternoon. And then we'll have you just give whatever presentation that you wanted, and we will ask you questions after that. I am assuming we are all set to go. I haven't heard anything that anybody is not able to be here today. The first person that I have on my list is Fred Kenny, who is the Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. Fred, I love the fact that you've got your logo right behind you. That's pretty interesting. I don't know how you got that far in this technology, but congratulations.
Well, thank you. And we have a company that can make this for anybody. Just send us your logo. Thank you. It's Senator Benning and committee members. It's great to have the opportunity to be with you today and talk with you about the Regional Development Corporations of Vermont. And kind of the subject matter I believe we were called in on was the Buildings and General Services Building Communities Program, which we all utilize. I'm Fred Kenny, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. I'm also currently have the honor of being the current president of the Regional Development Corporations of Vermont. So I thought I would give a brief overview of what RDCs are and what we do, and then speak briefly about the Building Communities Program, especially the economic development grants that are part of that program. And then each RDC director is here to introduce themselves and talk about their RDC and how they interact with that program. If that fits your agenda, I'll go ahead.
Absolutely does, and that's perfect.
Great. And also, I want to mention that David Snedeker and I are scheduled to be in House Commerce also at 1:30, although I think they're still on the floor. So we may have to depart at some time and leave you with the rest of our colleagues, our able colleagues. And I think Jamie Stewart from Central Vermont will also be joining us at some point.
Well, I'm glad you and Dave have your priorities straight and you appeared here first.
Absolutely. So as you may or may not know, there's 12 regional economic development organizations in Vermont, RDCs. Each one covers an area approximating a county. Some are smaller, some are cover larger areas, like David Snedeker's covers the whole Northeast Kingdom. And on the back of this one pager that we sent you is a map of the what each RDC actually covers. We are independent nonprofit corporations, so we each have a board of directors and a director using an executive director. The RDCs were started in the different regions at different times for different reasons, to address economic and community development issues unique to their regions. And they grew up organically, you know, and are have different goals that they try to attain. But while we have some differences, for example, some own property and some don't. Some have revolving loan funds and some don't. But we have more in common, and all the RDCs, deliver, you know, a similar portfolio of services that include, you know, one-on-one assistance provided to all types and sizes of businesses in our region. We provide project development and management, business education and training. A lot of that's happening through webinars right now, as you know. Business and project consulting, mentoring, and referrals to programs and services. And we all participate in partnerships in our regions to advance broad economic development goals like workforce development, workforce housing, childcare, and broadband. Most importantly, the RDCs serve as, you know, one-stop shops for economic and business services in our regions. In addition to our staffs, and the size of the staff differs in each region, but we also have, in addition to the staff, many state and statewide services co-located at our offices. For example, the Small Business Development Center advisors are co-located in some of the RDCs, virtually at the moment, but usually they're here in our offices. And we partner with them very closely. Also, staff from state programs like the Procurement and Technical Assistance Center, the Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center, their staff who are located throughout the state utilize our offices as well. For a portion of our operating revenue, the RDCs receive state performance grants through the Agency of Commerce. How much of that is different? How much of our budget is different for each RDC? But under those agreements, we serve as coordinators and implementers of economic and community development at the regional level. We're sort of the eyes and ears, hands and feet in each region for state agencies, primarily the Agency of Commerce, Labor, and also, you know, A&R to some extent. With that grant, we have certain tasks we have to carry out regionally, and we have annual performance requirements. The RDCs operate primarily through collaboration and coordination and partnerships with the federal and state agencies, programs, and services, everybody from the congressional delegation, you know, on down to our partners here, like the regional planning commissions and the chambers. And while we operate independently, serving our regions, we very often collaborate with each other as an association to implement state policy and deliver, you know, some state funded services. For example, in 2018 and 2019, the RDCs held regional workforce development summits across the state. The 2019 summits involved over 600 employers and service providers. And more recently, this past fall, from about October through December, the RDCs designed and delivered in just a few months a technical assistance program known as the Restart Vermont Technical Assistance Program that provided critical assistance to over 400 small businesses to help them pivot and, you know, adjust their businesses during to recover from COVID. So that's just an overview of the RDCs. Maybe I'll stop there and take questions about RDCs, and you know, let my colleagues jump in if they want to answer any of the questions. Otherwise, I was going to move on to the Building Communities program and our position on that, but certainly want to take questions on RDCs if you have any.
Fred, keeping in mind that we are in RDC 101 right now, for the benefit of anybody that may be coming into this for the first time, let's say that I'm a small brewer in Monmouth County, New Jersey, and I decide COVID is just driving me out of the state. I want to come to Middlebury, looks like a nice town. They contact you. What happens from there?
We would work with them to help them locate a facility, and then, help them work through, if they need it, resources to make the move happen, to get them set up here. And I would normally, get them in a room with any potential appropriate lenders, including ourselves, because we have a revolving loan fund. So instead of making them shop around to, banks and credit unions and the other lending organizations in Vermont, we usually try to get an idea of what they need and then go after the resources, including lending for them, and then help them identify and work through any permitting issues that they might have. So those are probably the main things we'd work on. Denise, would you mind unsharing so I can see? It's disconcerting not being able to see faces. All right. And if any of my colleagues want to add to that, would welcome that.
Senator Mazza has a question.
What's up? Does every county in Vermont are represented by a RDC or I see Grand Isle, they don't have any affiliation with anyone?
Which one doesn't?
Grand Isle?
Yes, Grand Isle has its own, the Lake Champlain Islands Economic Development Corporation. Sherry Potvin is the director there.
That's different than the Economic Development Corporation?
That is the Economic Development Corporation, or RDC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the only county that has their own or something, or no?
Nope, like ours is only Addison County. Other examples, like David's represents 3 different counties up in the Northeast Kingdom. Bob's is Bob Flint represent Springfield Regional Development Corporation is Springfield, Greater Springfield. Most of the others are county based, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions from the committee? Fred, I used Monmouth County, New Jersey as an example. You get trivia points if you can tell me what famous musician comes from Monmouth County, New Jersey.
Bruce Springsteen, I would guess.
You got it. I'd have given you double points if you had predicted it was Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, but I digress.
We're having a party.
Yeah. All right. Dave, I understand you're also pressed for some time. I don't know if you'd like to go next, or Fred, did you want to continue with the grants?
Yeah, let me just give you an overview of our position on this program, and then each RDC can talk about their RDC and also their involvement with this program. But we strongly support the BGS's Building Communities program. We also support the governor's request to increase funding for these grant programs in FY22 and 23. The grants are awarded to support capital investment in education, human services, recreation, and economic development facilities. They're relatively small, but they're incredibly impactful. The economic development grants are awarded to businesses, but they apply through the Regional Development Corporation. So we're the actual applicant on behalf of businesses in our regions. I want to make 4 points about the program. First, it's targeted. The grants are for capital costs, not operating costs of the business. They have to create or retain jobs and go towards gap funding. Projects have to be shovel ready and have strong local support. So there's guardrails around the program, and that helps us decide which businesses in our region we're going to talk to about the program. I should also add that it's one of the very few grant programs, federal or state, that we have available for businesses. Second point is that it's fair and equitable. As you can see, almost every RDC is here. The others are not here because they don't use the program. They just had other things scheduled today, unfortunately. But it's dispersed all over the state in all the categories, not just the economic development ones, but and to projects that have a demonstrated need. Third, it's easy to use and is the opposite of bureaucratic. We all apply to a lot of different state and federal programs, and this is by far the simplest. I'm not saying that the administrators and reviewers don't enforce the rules of the program, because they do. But the application is to the point. It's easy to put together, and you can always call BGS if you need a question clarified, and they're always there to answer your questions. It's not a huge application. It's very to the point and easy to fill out. There's no bloated bureaucracy involved, so that keeps the admin costs of the program to an absolute minimum. Finally, and most important probably, is the grants have an enormous return on investment. We can only speak, we're familiar with the grants that go to the other activities like recreation, education, and health and human services, but we're most familiar with the economic development grants. And as you know, the way the program is structured, it requires a dollar for dollar match. So if someone asks for a $15,000 grant, they have to spend $30,000. So automatically, the way the program is structured, you have a 2-to-1 return on your investment in this program. But the reality is that for almost all of the projects, and all the ones I've been involved in, involve a much larger investment by the recipient business. They may ask for the grant for a particular renovation or a piece of machinery or equipment, but the project is bigger than that usually, and the return is probably normally 8 to 10 times bigger than the state investment in the program. Certainly more than the match that's required. And I think you'll hear more about the different impacts of the program, like job creation, leverage dollars, and outcomes from each director. I'll just give you my example from Addison County. In FY 20 and 21, the program brought $73,600 to our region for 5 projects. It leveraged over $500,000 in renovations and equipment by the recipients, and created 8 to 10 new jobs. The recipients range from very small to small businesses. They're not your medium to large businesses, most of them, and they're across the spectrum in business sectors. Again, just give you a couple examples from our region. In 20 and 21, the grants went to, and I've got a couple pictures to share with you. Let's see, kind of before and afters. Are you seeing that picture?
Yep.
Okay. So a $14,000 grant to Agricola Meats. They renovated and fitted up and equipped a space for their startup specialty meat processing operation. They expanded from Agricola Farm to get into specialty meats. This is the before and after. So this is Ali and Stefano and their charcuterie meats. This pig, it wasn't actually slaughtered for those meats, but it was kind of a joke.
I was going to say, I hope there's no young kids on here.
So this equipment in the background here, these coolers and processing cabinets, were what their grant went towards. Another one is the Bristol Bakery and Cafe Wholesale in Bristol. A $15,000 grant helped them buy this sorter. They make they're a co-packer for crackers and cookies, and so this piece of machinery helped them get a new customer that increased their revenues by $1 million. And they added.
You can't see that unless you scroll down to the next picture.
I'm scrolling, but is it not going?
No, at least not on my screen.
No.
Let's see. Well, I don't want to hold you up. So let me stop sharing. Okay. Another one was Champlain Orchards. They're one of the larger orchards in our area, but they also make pies and donuts, and their equipment went to purchase donut making equipment to expand that part of the business. Grant to Wooden Hammer in Moncton. This was a small cabinet making woodworking shop that was being run out of his garage. And this allowed him to move it to a new location in town that had been the target of vandalism and was not on the tax rolls. Now, I wish I could show you the picture, but now it's a beautiful woodworking shop. He went from himself and one other person to now 5 people working in that shop. And, the building is beautiful and now back on the tax rolls for the town of Moncton. And then lastly, our latest one was to Mechanical Advantage. It's a small specialty machine shop here in town. And the grant went to help them buy a 5-axis rotary mill table for their operation that would allow them to bring on 2 or 3 more new customers and grow their employment. So just some examples, a huge impact, a little bit of money with a huge impact, at least in our region. I'm sure it's the same in the other regions as well. So thank you for your time, and happy to answer any questions or move on to the next victim.
Committee, any questions for Fred? All right, Dave, I understand you also are kind of pressed for time here. Would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Senator, and hello to all the other senators on the call. And so I'm Dave Snedeker, and Director of the Northeastern Vermont Development Association. So we are the regional development corporation for the Caledonia, Essex, and Orleans counties. We're somewhat unique among the other RDCs, and we're also a regional planning commission, which has its own statutory duties that we have to fulfill as well. But we think planning and development works well for us. It has for a long time. We have a couple of industrial parks in Orleans, St. Johnsbury, Linden, and Hardwick. We have a couple of multi-tenant buildings, one in Lindenville and one in St. Johnsbury. And we do a lot of the exact services that Fred shared that all the RDCs do. We have loan programs, and we connect businesses with the support services they need to kind of survive and grow. So answer any questions about us as an organization before I move on to the building communities grants.
I don't see anybody chomping at the bit to ask you questions, Dave. So
Okay.
Feel free to move ahead.
All right. So again, these building community grants, and the ones that NVDA works typically with is the Regional Economic Development Grant, which is the business program or the grant program for businesses. We serve as the applicant on behalf of the business. And it's usually in support of projects that are shovel ready, they're already permitted, and they just need some funding to get the project pushed through a little bit sooner. And it's a great program. And like Fred said, there are no other real grant programs available to for-profit businesses. So this has been very helpful. Looking back since 2016, we've written and received 12 grants for businesses all around the Northeast Kingdom. And we always try and work to make sure there's geographic representation in our applications. And those 12 grants have yielded about 40 new jobs since 2016 and retained many, many more jobs. Some of the projects that may be familiar to you, Senator, and also Senator Ingalls would be the Kingdom Brewing, which is located in Newport Center. Back in 2018, we applied for funding that allowed them to purchase a new chiller system that increased their production, and they added 4 new employees to the business. In 2018, again, Essex House and Tavern, which used to be the old Clyde River Hotel in Island Pond, we received $20,000 so they could do some structural improvements that allowed them to open that business up. It's a former hotel with a restaurant, and so they've been able to retain 7 full-time jobs and 11 part-time jobs. Precision Composites of Vermont, which is in your community of Lindenville, they received $25,000 to upgrade their quality assurance lab, and they ended up creating 5 new jobs at the Composites facility. And Linden Furniture up in the St. Johnsbury Industrial Park, we received $25,000 so they could complete a 60 by 30 warehouse expansion project which cost much more than that. But what that expansion did was freed up space at their Linden Corner facility and allowed them to hire 10 new jobs there. So very important program. And there were many more, but I'm happy to stop there and answer any more questions.
So when you make your geographical distribution, do you just use the heights and say north of the heights gets X and south of the heights gets Y?
No, I think we're usually aware of projects that are already occurring. And if we know they need a little bit of funding, we make sure that somebody from Essex County doesn't get or has an opportunity for an application, just as we would Caledonia County or Orleans County. So it's usually, it's a project that we're working usually with the business on some other aspect to begin with.
So Senator Mazza, the next time you're out in your Corvette for a ride, the Essex House in Island Pond, good place to stop and eat. They've done a really nice job with that funding up there, and I was very impressed the last time I was up there.
Is it affordable?
It is.
It
very
is.
affordable, actually, and it used to be a bar, and I could tell you some other stories from long ago when I had hair, but I'll skip that for now. Any other questions or comments for either Dave or Fred? Dave?
I'll just make one more comment. It's hard to tell how successful this program is going to be for a business, but back in 2016, we got a $25,000 grant for Caledonia Spirits to purchase distilling equipment for their original facility that was located in Hardwick. We had no idea they'd be building the facility they put in Montpelier, but the increased production, I think, helped them get there. So,
yep. Before you and Fred have to run, I didn't ask Fred the question. The governors recommend, when the governor makes that, he makes that as a result of people coming to the administration first and putting together some kind of a proposal. Were you involved in that?
I was not. I don't know if any of my colleagues were consulted, but we certainly support the increase for the program. And
Okay.
I think they know how impactful it's been for our businesses, but also the other categories that are, I think each category is slated for an increase under the request.
And have all of you been to our House counterpart, Corrections and Institutions, yet to make this sales pitch?
Not yet.
Okay.
And they're still on the House floor, Dave, so we got a few more minutes.
All right, I'm going to move down my list. I next have Bill Colvin from Bennington. Bill, welcome to Senate Institutions.
Great, thank you, Senator, and Senator, it's nice to see you, as well as my colleagues. As Senator Benning said, I'm Bill Colvin. I am the Assistant Director of the Bennington County Regional Commission and the Director of the Bennington County Industrial Corporation. Similar but not identical to the Northeast Kingdom, Bennington has consolidated its operations with its Regional Planning Commission and Regional Development Corporation. They are technically two separate organizations, but BCRC staff manages both. And therein lies my position as the Executive Director of the Industrial Corporation. BCIC has in the past owned an incubator building. We just sold the last lot in an industrial park in Bennington, and we are currently the owners of the 4-acre Putnam block in downtown Bennington and have just completed the initial phase one $31 million renovation of the Putnam block. So similar to my colleagues, we're actively involved in project support, facilitation, as well as one-on-one business support. With regard to buildings and general services, again, as you'll hear from everyone else, we have been active at BCIC in making those applications. And my thanks to my colleague, Jonathan Cooper, who I know is tuned in on YouTube, who does all the heavy lifting with this program and has compiled this data for you today. But in the last 3 fiscal years, 18, 19, and 20, we have received on behalf of regional businesses 7 economic development grant awards through BGS. The total investment there from BGS was exactly $100,000. And that has leveraged total investment of $2,006,374. So a 20-to-1 investment ratio with the BGS dollars that have been brought to the region. Those have resulted in 12 new jobs and 38 retained jobs in the last 3 fiscal years. Similar to what Dave just mentioned, we try to be geographically diverse, even though we represent a single region. We do try to be sensitive to the northern and southern and mid part of our county. when we're making these applications, as well as business size. As Fred and others have indicated, primarily these benefit small businesses, but that's not exclusively the case. So I want to take you through just 3 examples of kind of a larger, mid-size, and smaller company that have benefited in the last 3 years from these programs. The Orvis Company, I'm sure you're all familiar with, it's been headquartered in Manchester since its founding in 1856 and continues to manufacture world-class fishing rods from that facility. In FY 2018, a BGS grant of $20,000 helped Orvis acquire a clean room and machinery needed to boost its output by 50% of those rods to 45,000 rods per year. That added 2 positions and retained 4 more. The H.N. Williams store in Dorset is one of Vermont's kind of quintessential general stores. You can buy a belt sander, sand, and a sandwich all under one roof there in Dorset. And it's been part of Dorset's identity now for over 175 years. In fiscal year 2019, it undertook a major expansion to capitalize on increased vehicular traffic coming over the New York border. 2019 BGS grant of $15,000 supported investments for new prepared foods and deli section of that store, more than doubling the size of the store with expanded hours and leading to the creation of 10 new jobs in Dorset. And then on the much smaller scale, the Harvest Brewing Company is a Nano Brewery, which began in 2016 in downtown Bennington. Its shoestring operation attracted several local followers, but it wasn't able to scale up to meet the next level demand that was being generated. A BGS grant of $10,000 supported an ambitious investment in brewing technology, brewing capacity, food production, and interior renovations. That project retained 1 job and added 2 more in the heart of downtown Bennington, right immediately next door to the Putnam block that I just referenced. Critically important, that investment back in 2018 has helped Harvest weather the pandemic, and they've been able to pivot to home delivery and curbside in a safe operating environment as they await the time to reopen to the public safely. So those are kind of 3 examples that span the investment. We particularly think the kind of 20-to-1 leverage ratio really speaks to the importance of these grants. As Fred and Dave and others will mention, these really serve as kind of the last critical piece of funding to get a project which is ready to go, but for that last piece of funding kind of over the hump. One project I didn't mention because it predates the 3-year horizon was a small $7,500 grant to a mixed martial art studio and youth fitness collaborative here in Bennington. This was mixed martial arts training, which reached out to at-risk youth in our community. They started in a small 500 square foot facility. The BGS grants and another local grant were really critical funding to get that up and running. Just in the last few months, they have now relocated with their 2nd expansion in Bennington to a new location, have added multiple staff, and really have provided a critical service to at-risk youth in our region. And then while we're focusing on economic development grants, we have also, because of our joint nature, we do community and economic development work in addition to our planning work through the Regional Planning Commission. So we've been active in some of the other grants as well, which have really spanned the gamut from the Prospect ski area. Got a recreational grant to put in a new septic facility. That area was at risk of closing. A group of local investors stepped up, acquired that. $15,000 BGS recreational facilities grant was critical there. Southwestern Vermont Healthcare has received a grant to expand its telehealth services in its kind of more remote locations in Pownell and in Wilmington. And the Bennington Free Library was able to replace its historic slate roof in part with support from BGS. So these grants are critically important for our businesses as well as for our community facilities. And as Fred, Dave, and have said, and others will say, we certainly support an increase in funding for these programs. So, thank you.
Bill, is this your first time before institutions?
Through this institution, several years ago, I was point person as we were trying to create a brand new downtown office building in Bennington. So I think had a cot in the back corner of Senate institutions when Senator Campbell and others were at the helm. But yes, under this iteration. So thank you. I've been involved in community economic development work in southwestern southern Vermont since 1999.
You have without doubt the best named county in the state.
Thank you.
You also have two senators, Senator Campion and Senator Sears. Do you know both of them?
I know them both very well. Yes.
Which one do you
Personal friends with
prefer?
both of them.
Which one do you prefer?
See, I've been in front of way too many committees to know.
We
There
won't
is no
tell.
correct answer. There is no correct answer to that question.
Senator McCormick, either you're laughing hysterically or you had a question. I saw your hand moving. You're muted.
I was waving the witness off, suggesting he not answer your question.
And I appreciate the support. Thank you.
And I know I'm Bob Flint's favorite, so I don't need to.
Well, we're going to get to Bob shortly, but right now we're going to head east on Route 9 over to Adam Grinold from Brattleboro. Adam, welcome to Senate Institutions.
Great. Thank you so much, Senator. Other senators, glad to be with you today. So my name is Adam Grinold. I'm the Executive Director of the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. So we serve the southeastern Vermont, Windham County, and a few other communities, both in Bennington and Windsor County. We own about 750,000 square feet of commercial space, commercial, industrial, and light industrial space. We have approximately 100 tenants in those spaces that in turn employ around 450 employees. So this space is often referred to as incubation space, perhaps not in the same sense of use of the word in modern times, but over the last 50 years have been incubating those properties out with startups who eventually grow and expand within those spaces, or ideally out into the market in the region or elsewhere in Vermont in some cases. The properties that we own range in square footage from as small as a couple hundred feet up to 90,000 square feet for some of those businesses. So it's a wide range of size, industry, and sector. And it's always exciting to be able to work with those businesses. They often have capital needs for equipment manufacturing in order to expand their business. So this program has been very helpful both to our tenants, but in general at large businesses across the county. What we've seen in recent years, however, is, and this is really, I think, where I'll focus my time today before you, is less on the specific stories that you're hearing from my colleagues about how impactful and important it is when a company receives this. But it's also been becoming more frequent when we work with companies and they do not receive these because of the increased competition, which is great. The program has become more successful, but it is such a valuable tool. I think best or easily understood when a company doesn't receive it, what happens. And that really goes to speak to the sort of the but-for of this. This is truly often a but-for kind of grant, that these companies just can't make these investments without this. So we've worked with a few businesses that I won't name here today, but have made application and been unable to receive the grant for a variety of reasons, perhaps the quality of application, perhaps the timing, the level of commitment, their level of investment may have been less. That we've heard a lot about the match. Often these applications will document the above and beyond what is required match. And likely when during review, folks are looking at these and saying, well, they've only done the bare minimum match and others have much greater match. So when a company doesn't receive these funds and it truly then is unable to go forward with the project, we really get to see as the practitioners working alongside them, the result of that not happening. And I think everybody on the call here could tell stories of those times when there's just not enough funding to go around, and those projects don't move forward. So again, personally, a strong advocate and supporter of the increased funding that folks will be considering for this. To end on a happier note, where one was successful, we this past year received funding for a very small family-owned mills called Sawyer Bentwood. They take hardwood, bend it into a lot of different purposes, but if you picture the bottom of a rocking chair, they make a lot of those that they then distribute to manufacturers across Vermont and the nation for that construction, for the ultimate assembly. So those folks received funding to also expand out into another sector. They, with their $10,000, were able to purchase a CNC machine for their floor, and that's giving them a little more diversity and a little more stability in their business. They're able to add on 2 operators, an operator and an assistant for that equipment. And we continue to see them in their excitement and growth opportunities that have come just from that one piece of equipment that, but for this grant, they could not have afforded. I'll leave it there.
So Adam, you probably also know your 2 state senators.
Absolutely.
I should have mentioned before, this is Zoom format that we are in right now. It's got some benefits to it, but really the only fun thing about it is 15 minutes before the Senate goes on the floor, we're all supposed to sign on to make sure everybody gets in there. And it's afforded us something we've never had before. We actually get to pick on each other and talk funny stories about other senators. So if you have any stories to tell us about our new pro tem especially, this would be a great time to hear whatever that is.
Oh, sure. I've got a list prepared.
Oh, great.
No,
Well,
that's not going to happen.
If you could send that email to me, I'd like to hang on to some of those stories.
That's
And
not going to happen.
I'm going to extend the same invitation to everybody else on the screen, except Dave Snedeker. Everybody else is able to tell us any story that they want. Adam, thank you very much for coming. I'm going to slide right up Route 5 and get to Bob Flint. Bob, welcome.
Yes. Hi, Senator. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all. So I'll try not to be redundant with everything you've heard. I will play off a point. Well, I'll tell you first about SRDC, then I'll get into the BGS grants. So Springfield Regional Development Corporation has been around since 1992. I'm the 4th director in its history and have been in this position since 2005. So we cover southern Windsor County, basically Springfield to the south, Windsor to the north, and over to Ludlow in the west, and the communities in between. All of us are similar in terms of the services we offer, and I'll call it comprehensive case management, whether it's for the single person looking to start a business or the largest employers, and all the various things they might be dealing with in a particular day, which in the past year has certainly been an adventure in trying to translate the various acronyms of EIDL and PPP and PUA, et cetera, and trying to help provide technical assistance as well as, frankly, support and therapy to these people as we're all trying to get through this together. Our organization, because of the nature of the communities we serve in their past, owns real estate, but owns real estate for the goal of trying to get it cleaned up and put back in order. You perhaps have heard about the governor's proposal to remediate brownfields. We're a strong supporter of that because we currently own over 400,000 feet of empty property. That's former machine tool buildings that are contaminated, and we've been chugging away at trying to get those sites cleaned up and put back in use. We do own a commercial industrial building that was cleaned up and back in use, and we also own 2 properties in Windsor. If you ever go to Addison's Park, where Harpoon Brewery is located, we own the buildings where Vermont Farmstead Cheese and Blake Hill Preserves are located. Again, a means to an end, because in both of those cases, a VEDA program helped make the numbers work, and us being the owner allowed that program to help get the business up and running and allow them to be successful. So one of my terms of art is sausage making, and that's where this program really plugs in, because every situation's different. You're trying to think of how you get to the end, but the path to the end is different in every circumstance. this program is a great asset to plug in and pick up small pieces of equipment or part of a larger capital stack along with goodness knows what else. So in 2020, SRDC received 2 grants as a pass-through, one for the Springfield Food Co-op, which is undergoing an expansion and relocation to downtown Springfield and a $1.5 million project. So we received $15,000 that is going towards coolers for that expansion process. And those are actually, I think I'm waiting for the check for that to come from the state so we can actually pass that along. And that project is, Senator McCormick knows by coming to Springfield every now and then, is underway, and they'll be opening in their new location, hopefully in April. And the other one is for the aforementioned Blake Hill Preserves. So that's an interesting story because you had a couple that came to America from Britain. They settled in Connecticut as accountants, traveled up to Vermont like that. And the wife had an old jam recipe from her grandmother in England, started fooling around with it. They were living in Grafton, started selling it at the Grafton Village store. It took off. So they started doing it as kind of a side business in the building next to their farm. And bada bing, bada boom, they outgrew the farm and needed an honest to goodness production facility. So they moved to Windsor. We own the building. They employ probably 10 to 12 people, and they've already maxed out their production at that facility. So this grant, which in this case was $10,000, has gone towards purchasing additional kettles, additional production equipment to make more jam and jelly. And that's part of a project that's going to lead to 5 new jobs this year, as well as the retention of the 12 jobs. So I'm going to mention one from 5 years ago, just because it's an example of you can't predict the future. Drew's All Natural, which is a company in Chester, Vermont, was having a devil of a time with the town of Chester over wastewater. And every few months, I'd be playing diplomat between the town and the then owner of the company and trying to figure this out. And were they dumping stuff in they shouldn't dump in, and so on and so forth. So this opportunity came up. A $15,000 BGS grant helped to finally prod the company into spending another 60, 70 grand into coming up with a fix for the wastewater. So the company at that time employed 30 people. That now employs 90. And yes, one didn't lead to the other, but solving that constraint, getting that problem and getting past that hurdle allowed the company to finally address their growth and really some strategic planning. I guess to piggyback on what Adam said earlier, these grants are increasingly competitive, and we certainly support the proposal for increased funding for it. It's a great program. It is nimble. It is flexible. It makes an awful lot of sense. But because of the competitive nature of it, this is the first year we've been funded in the past 3 years for applications, and the applications we were awarded were less than we applied for. So we're grateful for the funding we got. We're going to put it to good use, as I just said. But note that those applications were for $25,000 each, not 10 and 15. Obviously, again, we're grateful for the funding, but the point is that there's a tremendous need for this program out there, and even beyond what the ask is currently. So hopefully you're hearing the message from all of us that this is something that's used around the state, that's helping small businesses, and that we support the continued expansion of resources for it. I appreciate the opportunity.
Senator Mazza.
You say you gave $15,000 to $1.5 million project. It doesn't seem like it was the paperwork involved. I mean, I think you said $1.5 million the cost of the project, and they applied for $15,000. I mean,
they applied for $25,000,
yeah.
And we actually applied the year before and were rejected for it. But again, think of sausage making. We're chunking, this is actually a really interesting one to chunk together, because you've got a building purchase, you've got the construction of the property, you've got the relocation of the facility and trying to buy new equipment, and you've got a bank, you've got private investors, you've got an opportunity zone fund investor in there. And yes, it would have been nice to have had 50,000 instead of 15, but it's a piece of the puzzle that allowed them to truly start off with new equipment in their new facility.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we're going to head west on Route 4, end up over in Rutland. Tyler Richardson, welcome to Senate Institutions.
Thank you for having me, Senator, and thank you for the rest of the committee for hosting us today and giving us an opportunity to talk a little bit about our work. My name is Tyler Richardson. I am the Operations Director for the newly created Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland region. Unique to my colleagues, we are a joint Chamber and Economic Development organization. Back in October, the Rutland Economic Development Corporation, of which I was Executive Director of, merged with the Rutland Region Chamber of Commerce. So now we have this exciting new team, this exciting new organization, and it's broadened our scope for our ability to serve all of Rutland County and the 27 towns therein. I'm excited to talk a little bit about the Building Communities program today, and specifically the regional economic development grants, because I think it's really representative of the type of work we do to help our businesses grow, in terms of sometimes putting together, Bob Flint said it great, sausage making, the patchwork that goes into a lot of these, a lot of our efforts to grow our regional businesses. So I really wanted to highlight the successes that we've had with this program over the last 5 years. We think it's crucial going forward, obviously, to have an added focus on strategies related to COVID, but we really see this program as an investment in what's already working. We've really seen successes working with businesses that are at these pivotal points in their life cycle, who are really ready and poised to grow. The success of the program, in our view, is really stoking that growth. It's not about starting a business. It's not about saving a business. It's about investing in what's already working and creating high quality, high skill, high paying jobs. The ease of access to these grants for us allows us the capacity to take on the grant writing burden on behalf of the businesses, so that they can focus on that growth and we can focus on connecting them to the resources that are available. You know, in addition to these types of programs, we leverage our expertise and our relationships to encourage growth, leveraging other tools at our disposal. We have a revolving loan fund, for example, that we work with through USDA Rural Development. We connect folks, businesses to Vermont Training Program, for example. Those are just a couple of examples that of programs that we leverage. And often these small grants are just enough to incentivize the risk-taking involved in initiating growth strategies. It's kind of corny, but I like to say that this program takes tomorrow's plans and turns it into today's actions. Over the last 5 years, we've been able to help a dozen businesses, bringing in just under $200,000 through this program, leveraging total project amounts in just shy of $1 million. Through that, it's created at least 77 jobs and growing. And these are businesses all throughout our county: Rutland, Rutland Town, West Rutland, Killington, Poultney, Pittsburgh, covering all sorts of industry sectors, from manufacturing to medical supplies to accounting services, restaurants, and the like. And I want to kind of give three examples from some of the businesses that we've worked with. You know, back in 2016, we were meeting with Awesome Graphics, Rutland's located printing and design firm, just on our regular sort of business visits that we do on a regular basis. And we really asked them, one of the questions we always ask is sort of, what's your plan? What's next for you? And they said, oh, you know, we would really like to build an extension on the back of our building, add 250 square feet back there, because we're maxed out. We can't bring on any more clients because we need more people and we can't fit them in the building. But you know, that's a plan for a couple of years down the road. Well, we brought up this grant and they applied for it that year. And a few months later, they built that extension. Actually, they couldn't go back. They had problems with the parking lot, so they ended up building up and they built 500 square feet. So it was even bigger project than they imagined. You know, flash forward 5 years, they've added 5 jobs to that. They purchased the building next door and they're expanding into that building as well. And they're bringing a lot of the services that they contract out to other parties in-house. Some of the metal fabrication they use to build light boxes. That was started, they started dipping their toe in that water through their work at the Mint, the makerspace here in Rutland Town, that we helped get started a few years ago in an incubator building that we own there in Rutland Town. So that's just an example of ways that some of the connections are made through the work that we do. Very similarly, we were working with a local landscaping company, Carpenter and Costin. They wanted to, again, expand. They were held back by their footprint. And so they worked with us to get a grant through this program. We lent them money through our revolving loan fund. We connected them with local funders, And they bought a building, and in the last 5 years have doubled their staff and added 27 jobs, 20 jobs, excuse me. And lastly, I wanted to talk about Ann Clark Cookie Cutters. A few years ago, we were talking with them back in 2016. Again, what their plans were. They had really figured out how to penetrate the Amazon marketplace. And at the time, they were producing 2.6 million cookie cutters. They needed some equipment so that they can hire some more folks to produce more cookie cutters. We got them a grant. We gave them a couple of loans, leveraged $35,000 through a couple of grants through this program, actually, for about $185,000 project. Flash forward to now, they're now producing 7 million cookie cutters. They're the largest cookie cutter manufacturer in the United States, second only in the world to China. They're delivering all over to about a little over 20 countries in the world, and have doubled their staff, more than doubled their staff from 27 folks to 50, and they need to hire about 8 more people. So these are just examples of ways that these small investments really leverage really pivotal growth moments for these businesses. And last year, we were fortunate to connect this program to 3 businesses in our region: a restaurant in Killington, a printing and design firm in Pittsford, and another restaurant right there on Main Street on Pulteney, which is vital for the vitality of that community in the shadow of Green Mountain College closing. And we anticipate that, like our past successes with this program, that 5 years from now, 4 years from now, we'll be talking about the growth of these businesses as well. So to echo the chorus of my colleagues here, we 100% support funding this program more than it already is. And I thank the committee for their time today, and I welcome any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Tyler, do you know our old colleague Peg Flory?
I do. I know Peg very well.
She is my predecessor as chair of this committee. Next time you happen to run into her, would you tell her that the committee voted unanimously to offer our condolences to you for having to put up with Peg Flory?
Tell her I miss her. I want her back. Okay. I used to furnish her with mint candies every day. She had to have her mints.
Well, let's hope she's watching. And
I wish she would.
Wait a
Senators, it looks like House Commerce has finally convened. So David and I are going to have to go across the hall. Thank you so much for having us in today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And shout out to Dave Snedeker. Dave, thanks for what you do.
And Senator Mazza, how come you haven't brought me mints every day? That's in any event.
You don't smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't smoke cigarettes, so you don't need them.
All right, let's head back east on Route 4. We're going to hang a left on 107, go by Dick McCormick's place, and hang another left on Route 14, end up in South Barry at Wilkins Harley Davidson. And Jamie Stewart, I think that's your neck of the woods, is it not?
That would be my neck of the woods, Senator. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. And just for the record, I live in Pittsford, Vermont, so Peg Flory and I go way back.
Oh boy.
Okay.
And she is one of the truly wonderful characters that have come through Vermont, for sure.
You can take the same condolences with you if you happen to run into her.
Accept no condolences for that. It's been a pleasure. So I think at this point, at some point, we get to the point where you guys start hearing yada, 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 because you're hearing a lot of the same repeated out of all of us. So just the quick thing, CVEDC, like the other RDCs, works with all the state programs, the federal programs that really become that depository of information when businesses come through the door, big, small, medium, women owned, men owned, minority owned. They walk through the door, we're going to have an answer for them. And if we don't have an answer at our fingertips, we're going to find one. And that's basically the role of the RDCs. If somebody has a question and needs help, it's our job to figure out how to do it. So just the last 2 BGS grants that we were a part of, I think are really emblematic of 2 sides of the coin of where we're helping with BGS. On the first one, Vermont Creamery, I think many of you may know that that is a business that was started and developed and grew very successfully here in Vermont. And in its most recent history was purchased by the Land O'Lakes Cooperative, which I didn't realize it at the time, but Land O'Lakes Cooperative is very similar in design and structure to the Agrimark Cabot type of operation. So it's a farmers cooperative, and they come into an operation with that mentality. And when I first met with their management, their goal was to significantly increase the sales, double the sales over a course of a few years out of that facility, which meant expanding and doing a lot of work, including bringing on new people. Part of that was to maximize the utilization of the space that they had available to them in industrial park up in Barrytown. And with some of the limitations on their land, they were able to create the physical plant that they needed on that property, but not to have the necessary parking for the expanded workforce. And so they were able to make arrangements. Any of you that may have been up in that area, up in that park before, Vermont Creamery is directly across the street from the old Bombardier plant. And Bombardier plant is being partially utilized at this point, but significantly more. They've expanded, Vermont Creamery has expanded operations into there where they have storage and distribution aspects of their operation that are located there. But they also were contracting for parking space for their employees. The problem was, this is a typical industrial park road. There's no overhead lighting. It's only the lighting from the buildings. And people were coming out of there on their shift work and having to cross that road. The town was not comfortable with putting in any kind of pedestrian crosswalk. That, I would argue, is a municipal responsibility. But the business felt it was an absolute safety requirement for their workforce. And so we went to BGS to get funding, which then was more than matched by the Vermont Creamery folks to put in a pedestrian crosswalk, which was then turned over to the town of Barry to maintain in perpetuity. But that initial investment, that initial development was critical. It was a simple step. Now, Land O'Lakes, could they have come up with the added $16,000? Because it was approximately $32,000 project in total. Yes, they could, but we sent a signal as a state, to Land O'Lakes Cooperative and to the management team at Vermont Creamery that they were an important entity to us. At the same point, we were providing municipal infrastructure, which was safety related for the employees that work there. It's one of the new on-demand solar ones, so that when they needed it, they punch it, so it's not constantly flashing. It was flashing only when used. So well done. So that's one example. The other example we did that same year, was with Timberworks of Vermont, who manufactures timber homes, as well as the kiosks that you see on hiking trails with the information kiosks. And they were growing their operation and trying to we're developing a small manufacturing facility. And we were able to help them in funding for the dust collection system. Now, that business has continued to expand and grow. We did this obviously right before COVID hit. They've still been able to maintain growth in their business and maintain their employment, and have grown their employment in the ensuing time. But it was a very small business. We're talking 8 employees when we first got together with them. They've added, at this point, I think there's 6 more. They were up 8 more, and I think they dropped to 6. But the point is that they have significantly increased their employment in a small manufacturer using a natural resource here in Vermont. And on both of those scales, a large scale company and a small scale company, in each case, those funds were really critical to help move something bigger and better forward. And so, as all of my counterparts have said, strongly support both the continuation of the program and the expanded funding for it. You get us some more dollars, we will find good places and good businesses to work with to support your goals.
Jamie, thank you very much for coming. Any questions? If not, we'll continue up Route 14 and hit Route 15 eventually. I could be wrong, but Bob Haynes, does that leave us in your neck of the woods eventually?
No, I'm over on the Connecticut River above Springfield, Windsor, and Orange County.
I was wondering where Green Mountain Economic Development was.
Well, the name would suggest it's the whole state, but we are to blame. Al Moulton, God bless him, and we wound up with 30 towns, including 2 in Addison County that snuck away from them, and we're in southern Orange County and northern Windsor County on the Connecticut River. I am a refugee from Westchester County in 1969. Went to college across the river, and I snuck over my junior year to live in Pomfret. So happy to be here. I've had a career in real estate sales and development. So that's the way I kind of approach our business in general.
Senator Ingalls, you're in real estate.
I'm sorry?
Senator Ingalls is in real estate up here. So yeah.
I can tell he's a fine, outstanding fellow right here.
and I should have started by telling Senator Benning that my mother is from Atlantic County, New Jersey, Egg Harbor City.
Oh. You were the one who blurted out the old Sam Cooke song made famous by the Southside Joan and the Asbury Jukes.
There you go.
We're having a party. Okay.
I am guilty of only having applied for 2 BGS grants this year. We got both of them. One of them was for a facility in Bradford that Monique Priestley has put together a workspace. She needed some help with an HVAC system, applied for $10,000 and was granted $2,500, but she has found another grant with more capacity so she can add some scope. So she politely declined it. We did receive $15,000 for Innerrod, which is a hotel under conversion construction in Rochester, right on Route 100. Annie Mackay, who has the Big Town Art Gallery, and her husband Dune has Green Mountain Bicycles. They are building a hostel hotel that will cater to the biking community, hiking community for Green Mountain Forest, as well as the arts community in the summer. So they needed some help being able to put a locking, card-mounted locking system in their hotel doors and security system. So it was a $36,000 ad, and they were very thrilled to get $15,000 for it. We spend a lot of our time working on several items, not unlike my colleagues. Workforce development is very important to us. We have 3 technical centers, one in Bradford, one in Hartford, and one in Randolph, as well as Vermont Technical College. So we spend a lot of time in that sector in lots of ways with job training and trying to attract our young folks and support them if they're interested in a certain subject. They might want to go on to college. They might want to go on to business, manufacturing. We don't really try to coach them one way or the other. We want to find out what they want to do and then support them to the extent we can. Broadband is on everybody's hot list now. EC Fiber was founded by several people I know well, including one of my neighbors. So they are the model that lots of CUDs are looking at, and they continue to help. They're like the co-op industry, in my view, where a successful food co-op is eager to help another co-op grow. So we spend a lot of time with them. But I spend a large percentage of my time working on brownfield redevelopment. We were the first RDC to take the exemption to acquire the property in Bradford behind Farmway, an old fertilizer distributor property that they wanted for years but were afraid to buy because of the contingent liability. So we acquired it for them. We applied for an EPA grant to clean it up. And once it was a closed site, we sold it to them, and they added 19,000 feet. So if anyone has been a customer years ago and hasn't been there in a couple of years, you'll miss the 40 tractor trailer vans that were there that had all of their inventory in. So that was a big help. We helped with a facility in Wilder, the former Tip Top Tire site that is now has 4 housing units almost built on it. KED Engineering is a great story. It's the former Greenwoods farm equipment place in East Randolph. It was acquired by a young man who grew up in Tunbridge, learned to be a mechanic, moved to California, got involved in advanced manufacturing, came back, and now he has an East Coast facility that's working in tandem with his West Coast facility. It was brownfield. The state was helpful with some funding, and they are capital stacks, as Bob Flint says. You know, you have to try to layer the cake and figure out where you can get some assistance for some feasibility analysis. And then when a project is ready to go, you need some capital. We are getting ready to purchase a closed landfill in Post Mills. I've been working on for 5 years that will be developed for solar development. So the Brownfields program has been very helpful in that. And we're taking down the former Valley Motors car dealership on 107 in Bethel that's adjacent to GW Plastics. They are probably our poster child for a successful Vermont business, 400 employees, no customers in Vermont, and they manufacture injection molded parts that are distributed worldwide. And they were acquired last year by a Swedish company, $1 billion company, because they are so good at what they do. So they will continue to grow and have invested in Vermont in people and in property. So we're pleased with them. Job training credits are very important to us. The state has been very supportive of that. The veggie program has been fantastic support for us. I think we are 7 for 7 in veggie applications. We have grown hundreds of jobs that either were here and headed elsewhere or have come to Vermont, including an engineering firm that we recruited successfully from Lebanon, New Hampshire. The CDBG program has been really good for us, and that enabled us to acquire a piece of property and build a $5 million project in Randolph to keep LED Dynamics here. They had acquired a company in Connecticut and were being wanted to stay, but needed some help. So that is a facility that we purchased, we financed with Vita's help, and we lease it to them. The other properties that we own were also supported by Vita. Pompanusick Mills in East Thetford, Vermont. If you know East Thetford and Route 5, the thought of a 70,000 foot building going dark with 100 employees in it was scary. So we were able to back them up with Vita's help, and we leased the property to them. And the other one that we own is over also in Rochester. Advanced Illumination was displaced during Irene. So we bought a 25,000 foot former greeting card manufacturing site, refitted it and leased it to them. They all have an option in their lease to buy the property for whatever the declining mortgage balance is. So there aren't very many landlords who will do that. It's federal funding that flows through the state. It allows us to support businesses so they can keep their capital in their business and they don't have to invest in real estate. We get a little margin on top of it for our involvement and our risk. But we have found that to be a very successful process. And we are working hard to acquire a building in Randolph right now and develop a child care facility for 96 kids. So that's occupying a lot of my bandwidth right now. So I'm pleased to have a chance to present these thoughts to you. And I will also tell you, I am getting to I'm going to be retiring full-time 1st of April, April Fool's Day. The two things I like most about my job are our ability to help people, solve issues for people. It's anybody who likes puzzles or likes helping people, can be very satisfied with this job. And the other thing is the RDC group. I have never worked with a group of people who are more supportive, or more collegial, are more helpful in getting to the meat of the issue, helping to wrestle with sticky things, or providing advice and suggestions. So it's wonderful to live in a state where we have access to the decision makers and our government. It's a pleasure to be part of this process. So that's something I'm going to miss. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if we're decision makers, but you got us. What town are you from, Bob?
I live in Norwich, and our office is in White River. So we get as far north as Newbury. We get down to Heartland. We get over, to Hancock and Stockbridge. We're very busy in our core towns, being Bradford, Hartford, and Randolph, and we are busy in several others. And there are a few that are doing well by themselves. Woodstock is cooking quite nicely by themselves, so we do support things as requested, but we don't find we don't need to be there as much as we need to be in some of the other towns. We manage a revolving loan fund in the town of Hartford. It's money that came initially from CDBG funding. As half of that loan is paid back, the principal stays with the town, as you probably know. So the bulk of the money came from Catamount Brewing years ago. We also participate with Springfield and Brattleboro in the Connecticut River Revolving Loan Fund. And we have helped manage loan funds in other towns. So, sometimes you need to patch it together to be able to find the dollars to make things work. It's a challenge, but it is possible.
Well, thanks for joining us. We can zip up the interstate now to Tim Smith. Tim Smith, you happen to occupy the Cola Hudson position in our list of witnesses today. Do you know who Cola Hudson was?
Does not ring a bell, no.
Well, he used to be a representative from the town of Linden. He was there for many years, in fact, a few decades. And after a very long afternoon of debate, he sat patiently waiting. In his typical Vermont voice, he said, "Mr. Speaker, everything's been said that needs to be said, but not everybody has yet said it." Now, that's not to say that what you have to say isn't important, but I thank you for having the patience to wait our trip around the state here this afternoon, and welcome to Senate Institutions.
Thank you for having me, and nice to see all you senators. I just want to point out, I don't know if many of you caught what my colleague, Mr. Haynes, had commented on, that he's going to be retiring full-time, which leads me to believe he had been retired part-time. I don't know if I'm not sure if that's true or not, but
I'm going to keep 3 projects, Tim, to make sure they get done on a part-time basis. I didn't say it as carefully as I should have, so thank you.
And unlike, I would also add for Senator Mazza, my background looks pretty fancy. I was in a murder mystery over the weekend by Zoom, and I don't know how to remove my background, so I need to figure that out.
Well, you've been in Franklin County a long time.
Yes. I've been here too long, probably.
How do you keep those books so neat behind you? Is that a picture or something, or are they really that organized?
They're that, or I've read them all. So
okay, all right, good. All right.
They don't get disturbed too often.
Okay.
Yeah, I won't take up much of your time. I expected you, Senator Benning, to say we're being buzzed. We have to go to the floor now.
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah. just a couple quick things. As I heard my colleagues speak, I thought it was very interesting to hear where their projects were. And Franklin County is no different. We've utilized this BGS money for projects in Richford, East Fairfield, Swanton, Fairfax, Enosburg, and Georgia. And I know there's a lot of conversation in the State House relative to rural economic development. And I think this grant goes directly to rural economic development. We're able to access these dollars to assist small businesses in all of those towns, many of the small towns across the state. And it's a pleasure to be able to help them and to help them succeed. So I think it's important to just remember who the recipients of those dollars are. I'd also like to say, giving a small business a grant isn't a bad thing at all. From what I see, many of them feel that the state sees them as valuable, The state appreciates the fact that they're doing business, they're creating jobs. And I think that's what these grants do. They're small in size. You know, Senator Mazza, you had mentioned the 15,000, but it sends a message to the companies that yes, the state of Vermont does care about our business. They do care about us. And I think that's important to remember, that that really hits home with a lot of these small businesses. Total sales may be 100,000, but to get a $10,000 grant is huge for many of those. So that was one. Two quick examples of ours. We used our money to leverage we got a $20,000 grant for the town of Swanton, the village of Swanton. FCIDC put in another 10. And basically we took the 30,000. There's an old memorial auditorium in the village of Swanton that a developer wanted to turn into an Ace Hardware store. But to do that, we had to move out a distributor of food products. And to do that, we had to find him a home. So we used our money. We took 15, and here's the photos. Thank you, Denise. I didn't know if you had them, but here's the building originally when it was used for just a warehouse facility. And we worked with the developer, the business owner that needed to be relocated, and another developer to build a new building. So we offered the developer $15,000 to do engineering so we could construct a new building so that the business in this building could relocate to open it up for Ace Hardware to renovate. The other $15,000 that we had, we gave to the business in this, we granted to the business in this building to use it for moving costs and to relocate. So if you can find it, Denise, you can see what the final outcome was, hopefully, and there it is right there. So we got 20,000. We leveraged 10 from Franklin County Industrial Development. Now this is in downtown in the village of Swanton. It's a huge, huge improvement.
How much did that cost, the whole project?
This whole project, well, the one developer built a 10,000 square foot warehouse, and then you had this renovation. I would say between the two, it generated about $2.5 million worth of economic impact.
Wow.
And it all started with, if we didn't have the 30 to entice the one developer to build a building or to entice this gentleman to move out of it into the new one, this would have never happened. So this was huge for us. The owner of the Ace could not say enough about the role that FCIDC played. So that was one. The other one, which I think you'll find totally surprising, is Richford Wood Products. They make wood shavings for bedding. Their monthly electric bill from Vermont Electric Co-op was $19,000. And through some research, we found that if we had invested, if the company invested in electrical capacitors, they could save some dollars. And the capacitors, for those who might not be familiar, is when electrical lines are carrying DC voltage, they can have ripples or spikes, and the capacitors basically absorb those and reduces the amount of power. They reduce their power costs, their bill from $19,000 to $6,000 on a monthly basis by investing in $40,000 worth of capacitors. So that gave them additional $13,000 to the bottom line. It was huge, and the company has been successful. So I don't want to take any more of your time. I just wanted to share those and just reinforce the fact that these are just a great way to thank business, and it's a great way to build our rural economy. So thank you all.
Appreciate you coming and sticking out this long. The Capitol bill right now, where the governor's recommend is over on the House side. The House is doing its work, and then after what's known as crossover, we'll be receiving the Capitol bill. Generally speaking, if the governor's recommend is modified at all by the House, it gets back over to us and we can play with it some. So if they try to take money away from you, you've given us a good reason here this afternoon to try to hang on to the governor's recommend. So we appreciate the education and to know that we're all part of something that's much bigger than ourselves this afternoon. So thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Didn't ask Tim who his favorite senator was, Joe.
Did you give any money?
You already told me.
Parents,
It's,
Alan?
Didn't want to hurt my feelings.
I want to hear what Senator